All right. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Let's see here, I'm probably on a student. So yeah, you all, okay. All right, so when you log into eSPED, you're gonna have gotten a notice from your LSSP diagnostician. Typically won't be a speech path because speech only, they do their own IEPs, goals and objectives. They're the case manager for our speech only students. So it could be an ED kid, AU, ID, OHI, LD, any other D we've got. You'll get a notice, you'll know it's coming up for a student on your caseload. They'll have a draft record created. If you go into enter your PLAAFPs and your goals and objectives into eSPED, and there's not a draft record, please contact your CBE, who is the LSSP or the diagnostician there on campus first. Let them know, because our expectation is that they open those drafts for you to enter goals and objectives at least 2 to 3, I had to think about that, at least 2 to 3 weeks prior to the annual ARD happening. If they go 4 or 5 weeks, that's fine. What we caution them against is don't open drafts now for ARDs that won't happen until May, because things get lost and we don't need to lose any data. So there should be a draft record. You see one here for Ann Fake, one for whoever Carol Fake is. There's lots of fake students in the system. Before I show you how to put that in there, how to put PLAAFPs and goals and objectives in the system, know that there's a fake student on each one of your campuses, so you can feel free to go in and practice with those before you have your first ARD. You can't mess those up. They don't go anywhere. They're strictly there for people to practice with. So don't be afraid to mess around with a fake kid in the system. So I've got a draft record open. I'll pick Billy BSS because I was working in him yesterday. And it's going to ask me why I'm accessing the student's record. If I'm doing PLAAFPs and goals and objectives, I'm writing part of the student's IEP. So that's the reason I'm going to check. And it does track why I said I accessed the kid's record. First, we have the student information screen, which is no matter whether you go into progress reports as a special ed teacher, or you go into ARD forms to write the PLAAFPs and the goals and objectives. They all start with the student information screen. I don't know if anybody's told you, but you can go in if you've got your caseload already from your department head or whoever's over special ed. If you've worked out who's on your caseload as far as students, you can go in here under case manager. You can click new and add yourself in as the case manager. That's just a tip that'll help the DIAG or LSSP know who to contact from the system in the event that they have questions. So how many have been through a basic overview of eSPED with me or with your specialist? And they explain to you what the buttons across the top mean? Yeah, I'll go through them real quick. Save does that, it saves it. Clear unsaved changes does exactly that, it doesn't save it. Previous would take me back a screen, next will take me forward a screen. Students takes me back out to my student list. Return, I don't even know why that's on here because I can't return to anywhere but the student screen from here. Reports and print archive do the exact same thing. It's how you would generate a PDF copy. I recommend reports just because it seems to work easier for me than print archive. But I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. You could keep clicking next until you got to development of IEP / transition, or you can click like I just did, the screen drop down here and scroll, click it. It takes you to where you're going to enter your PLAAFPs for the student. If it's an annual ARD, we want this question answered. It shouldn't ever be no that we didn't review previous year's progress. If it's an annual, it's not applicable if it's an initial, it's their first time in special ed. But if they've been in and we've been working on goals and objectives, we should always address the progress made or not made on their previous year's goals and objectives. And y'all went through a training with your specialist, I'm going to assume, during ETP on what to put, what content goes in your PLAAFs, the multiple sources, all that fun stuff. Oh, somebody's speaker's on and giving feedback.
Did y'all go through ETP?
Or if not, in the chat.
Was that new teachers?
It was new teachers. If you went through ETP, whenever, I think that was last week. They're all running together. It was either last week or the beginning of this week. And then there's more trainings tomorrow. So if you haven't gotten it already, you may get it again tomorrow, depending on what your program is that you work with in our department. But it goes through, and if not, you can put in the chat, you can tell me what program what campus and what program you're at, and I'll get that specialist over that program for that campus in touch with you to provide the content training of what information they're looking for when they read the PLAAFs. But I'll show you how to put them in. So you could click any box, you could click, there's one for each subject. I recommend, when I used to write PLAAFs, I would put it in other, and then I would tell a story about the student, that James is a student who suffers from or qualifies for special ed as a student with another health impairment for ADHD. And then I'd talk about how that impacts me in reading, math, behavior, any of those, instead of going here and saying it 6 times. But if I want to put something in, I click the paper icon. This little white piece of paper. If you see gray lines, that means there's something in it. And it's a rich text field, which is just an online Word document. So you can type, you can format, you can add pictures if you've taken a screenshot of what the kid was working on, if they're doing virtual, and you think that's a really good example of what they're doing, you could take a screenshot of it and post that in here as an example. And then you save it. It will give you up to 27 single-spaced pages per area for PLAAF. Please don't type 27 pages because our document's going to be 112. But be thorough. We should know what the student's disability is. The PLAAF, we always say, is the meat of the IEP document for the student. I should be able to read the PLAAF and know what goals and objectives are coming and what accommodations I would expect to see based on what I've read in the PLAAF. So I entered something here. You can see gray lines. If I want to see what's there because somebody else may have done math and I did reading, if I click the plus sign, it'll show me what's in there, but I can't type it. I can't type in this box at the moment. I have to click the paper icon in order to type my PLAAF in there. Any questions on how to put PLAAFs in? I don't make it more complicated or simpler than it is. It's that straightforward, putting PLAAFs in. I'm getting a thumbs up from somebody. It just pops up on my screen. All right. If there aren't any questions, or if you don't want to ask it in the group, feel free. Like I said, you can email me. My email is jfrost@pasadenaisd.org. Feel free to email me if you have a question or you forget. I typically answer them all hours of the day and night. After I've done my PLAAFs, the next step I would go to,
I think so.
Unless I'm teaching high school, then I would do transition and all that fun stuff. And we have a district-wide transition teacher who is going to provide great trainings and has provided great trainings in the past years for high school level special ed teachers on what goes in there. But let's say I don't need transition. My next step would be measurable annual goals. Yes, and if you've jumped on and you haven't put your campus and your name in the chat, please do so, because that's how we're going to take attendance today. So goals and objectives, I'm going to open this up. If it's a draft and this kid doesn't have any other goals or any other service providers, it's going to be blank. That's what you want to see. Unless the kid has speech therapy, occupational therapy, something like that, and they've gone in and put goals in and they just beat you to the punch for preparing for this annual ARD. So in order to put a new goal in, you click add new goal. So I'm trying to keep track of the chat too. There we go. Okay. Yeah, there's some feedback. I keep getting feedback on somebody. So if you can mute, that would be great, unless you're asking a question, because it is providing feedback on my end on the recording. So within the goal and objective, or the goals and objectives, I clicked add new goal. Did everybody see how I did that? You just click the button that said add new goal. If not, it's when it returns. Really? It shouldn't return to there. Of course it would. Okay, unmeasurable annual goal. I don't know why it did the return to there. It's add new goal. The goal number, once again, whether you're teaching a resource, support facilitation, one of our specialized programs, they would have given you and could provide you. We have a document that provides goal numbers. I know that I want to say reading is 1, math is 2, writing is 3. I think we're up to like 26, 27 different goal areas at this point in the district. So if you're writing a goal for this year, it'd be, let's say if it was math, it'd be 2.1. I will need another one for the beginning of next school year. So I'd have 2.1 and 2.2, because in Pasadena, we've been in trouble in the past with parents who, we used to wrap the goals from our date to our date like this, like you can see on my screen. And then we had people get upset. Parents claim, well, you had a goal and objective. You didn't work with my kid over the summer. Well, you were in the ARD where we said the kid wasn't getting ESY. He was at home with you. No, we didn't work on that. So in order to fix that, we do this. We would have one that starts the ARD date and goes through the end of the school year. And then we would have a second one that would be 2.2 that would start.
Please stay out of here so I can finish being on this meeting. I know you miss me. I'm coming out.
I'm just want to know how I like whoa.
John.
Can you mute, please? There we go. That's my kids when I'm working from home too. Daddy, I want to show you. No, you don't. So you would have one that starts the ARD date through the end of the school year, and then you'll have one that picks up the first day of school. And we're going to guess it's typically the 3rd Monday of August here in Pasadena. We don't expect you to know that right now. The Board of Trustees doesn't approve our following your calendar until typically March of the spring semester. So if you were to put in here 8/18/2021, and we started 8/15, we're not going to make you go back to ARD and change it for 3 days. There's no way we could know at this point the exact date they'll give us to start. But you would have one for ARD date to the end of this school year, and one from beginning of the school year to the annual ARD date. General modifications and accommodations, you're not going to put anything in here. Because we have a whole screen for what accommodations the kid gets, and you're going to put it in your actual goal. So I don't need a list here. I'm going to mark that it's a draft, and I'm going to tell the committee, is it transition related? Is it academic, functional? What is it? Language of delivery. And I'm just going to work my way down the screen. English, Spanish, English with Spanish support, whatever it happens to be. Goal focus. I put 2, so I'm going to say math. Grade level, I'm going to do the kids enrolled grade level curriculum. This kid wouldn't be in school. They're 0 years old and they're at Queens. But put the kids enrolled grade level, not the grade level that they're working on, because we try to align to as close as possible to the grade level standards. The goal constructor, we don't use the find teaks. Our speech paths at times use find other. But if you were a master goal writer, you could go in here and start typing a goal. I am not, so I'm not even going to pretend to type something in there correctly. But I'm going to start at the top and work my way to the bottom. And I would say by the end of the 2021 school year, using, and I can only pick one condition. I don't know any student off the top of my head who just has one condition, but you can see it's adding it to the bottom, and I'm going to show you what you can do with that in a second. Behavior, if I listed every behavior a kid could exhibit, this thing would be a mile long and you would never find what you were looking for. But he's going to use a calculator to improve his articulation skills because it's in the drop down. You would click new and type the appropriate goal for what the child is working on, and then the criteria as evidenced, or 7 out of 10 trials, whatever is appropriate for that child. So I've built my goal. It's got to have the time frame, condition, behavior, and criteria. That's the legal requirement. It can't be a goal or an objective without those 4 things. But I can go in here and I can edit now when given a, not just a calculator, a simple 4 function calculator and extra time. So I can go in there and I can add the accommodations that the child will need, whatever he would need to be successful in mastering this goal and working on this skill. And I'm going to put his name in there. You'll personalize it, make it as personalized and detailed as you need to for that specific student. 7. I'm just showing you. It's so I've got a goal. I will say add the accommodations that are appropriate. I'm typically, when I look at goals and objectives, I'm not thinking that I will see on a math goal that I'm going to see when given a dictionary. He's going to solve these math problems. We have seen it where people list every accommodation that the student has in every single goal, but we want to be specific as to what accommodations that the child will require for this specific goal. Does that make sense? I'm not gonna add random stuff to a calculator to social studies and things like that. That make them in handy though. Implementer. It's typically, unless you're in a self-contained special ed class and that's where the kid's working, we have one down here that says special ed teacher, or if you're in our able classrooms, BSS, Omega, Success, well, we've got paras. It could be a special education teacher and staff working with the kid. If you're doing resource or support facilitation, the option is general education / special education teacher. There's not one that says special education / general education teacher. That's on purpose. I've had people argue in 7 years to get me to change it, and it hadn't happened yet. The methods of evaluation, there are 4 methods of evaluation possible. You don't have to use all 4. We're only going to list what we actually plan to use to evaluate success on this goal. So I typically say data collection. Data collection is what you make it. We've got lots of great data collection tools in the district. Your specialists over the specific programs have tons and tons of experience with data collection. But what I don't want to see is you feeling like you have to put in 4 because there are 4 blanks. If you're only going to do data collection, only put data collection. Because if we go to do process, I've got to defend that for you. And if I can't figure out where it is and you don't have it, we have a problem. So don't put portfolios just because I'm going to fill up all 4 boxes and then like if I did it like that, I'd be asking for the data collection, the employer evaluation and portfolios. And I may look at this and say, this kid's in 2nd grade, he doesn't have an employer evaluation. So only put the ones that are appropriate. Don't feel like you have to fill all 4 boxes. And then here it's periodic reports on the progress the student is making toward the annual goal will be provided. The only option you have is concurrent with the issuance of report cards. We could send them home more frequently if we wanted to. However, they will go home at least every time a report card goes home for the students on the campus. Any questions on entering a goal so far? If so, unmute, feel free to ask. If not, I've got my goal in here. I'll hit save. So I've saved it, and when I'm looking here, it gives me another chance to say, okay, here's all I've done: math, reading, whatever goals I'm working on, behavior. If I misspelled it, I've got the wrong kid's name in there, whatever the case may be, it just doesn't look right here. I can click edit. It'll take me back to that goal, make the update I need, and just hit save again. Let's say I've got a goal and I need some objectives with it, right? I could go, I'm gonna hit save just to make sure. There are no objectives. There we go. So I could go in here and click create new objective, which is what you would do. I could go through this whole thing again, but I'm going to show you a quick, if that's how you want to work, that's great. Like, nobody's stopping you, but I'm going to show you a more efficient way to do it. So my overall goal is 7 out of 10 correct. I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to hit Control C. And then I'm going to go click create new objective. And down here, I'm going to say Control V. By the end of and I'm going to change this. First 9 weeks. And of course, end of the day, I can't spell. He will improve it. Let's say his PLAAF said he's currently functioning at 2 out of 10 times successful. I may change this and say, by the end of the first 9 weeks, I want him to be 5 out of 10 successful. I'm going to put a code here because the code for an objective just tells it what order to print in. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, how many ever objectives you have. So that it puts it in the order you want it to, instead of this computer system trying to do some non-English alphabetizing. I'm putting it in weird order. So on an objective, I don't have to put draft because it should be self-explanatory to the parent that if the goal is draft, the objectives that go with it are also a draft. And your LSSP or diagnostician will change that from draft to accepted by committee as they hold the ARD meeting. So if this looked good to me, I would hit save. I could go in. This one I need to delete because it's blank and it's going to mess me up. So I would go through that same circular process, entering it, saving it, entering it, saving it for how many ever objectives I needed. I won't go through it over and over again because it's pretty self-explanatory. So I've created my goals and my objectives. Let's say I put them all in, right? I'm gonna hit save one more time to get out of the goal entry screen. Let's say I wanna see what that looks like on paper before I would send it home to a parent. I can click preview. And it's gonna take it a second. And it's gonna give me a PDF of here's what it would, that's the blank goal that somebody put in. Here's the one we just did. Math, here's the overall goal in bold black letters. And then I've got my benchmark or short-term objective below that. That's another chance for you to check it. If something looks off, go back in the same way you entered it and edit, make the changes you need and save it again. You could, while you're previewing it, if you've got all your goals and objectives here, you could click up in the top right corner and click print. And you could print it out and send it home to the parent or email it, depending on how our district is going as far as face-to-face versus virtual and how the kids receiving instruction and things like that. That is entering goals and objectives. And I kept it at 30 minutes instead of 40. Sweet. I'll open it up now for any questions. There's not any questions I haven't heard, comments, thoughts. Now's your chance.
So I have, excuse me, I have a question.
Okay.
Can you go back to when you were highlighting how to highlight it, hit Control C, and then you were going
Yes.
too fast, so I didn't finish. I couldn't catch up with you to take the rest of the notes.
Okay. So I'm going to go back into the goal. And right here, all I did was click in this box.
Mhm.
I highlight it just by scrolling over it. Then I hit
Okay.
Control C. Then I'm going to click Create New Objective. And once the objective screen comes up, I'm going to click in the objective benchmark box down at the bottom, and I'm going to hit Control V.
Okay.
Make adjustments that I need, make sure I've got a code in there, and hit Save. And then it's going to take me back out to my main goal screen, and you'll see now I've got 2 objectives.
Okay.
So that's how you do that one. And then I'll send, it'll probably be tomorrow, but I'll send everybody who was on this call the guidance documents that are step-by-step with screenshots on how to enter this.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions or comments?
Question. For the year, you put August through May, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we don't wrap them here in Pasadena. It starts from, and let's say if the R doesn't happen until September or November, I'll put 11/2 through the end of the year. And then I'd have another one that would come in and say, and this wouldn't be right. This would be, we're not going backwards in time, although COVID feels like it.
Mm.
Then we would go 8/18, 2021 through 11/1, 2021. And then I've covered the entire year, but I broke it into 2 goals, what I'm working on this year and what I'm working on the start of next school year.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions or thoughts, comments? And once again, if you haven't for the grading period, somebody asked, what would I put in the objective for each grading period? If this one was through the end of the school year, I would say, depending on when the ARD started, you just have to realistically look at how many weeks are left of the school year. If there's 2 9 weeks left, because I'm doing it in December, early January, one of my objectives may say by the end of the 3rd 9 weeks, and the second one could say by the end of the 4th 9 weeks or by the end of the school year, because then my second one, when I start here, it would be by the end of the IEP year. Because the 2020-2021 school year would be over. My one starting the following school year would be by the end of the IEP year. And that's how I would know one's for this school year and one's for the remainder of the IEP year that the student has. I hope that answers that question in the chat. Any other questions or comments? If not, y'all are free to go. Let me stop recording before I get this on.